recently went on an exciting adventure to a butcher, the Brandon Sheard guy.
Yeah, he's a meat smith. He comes to people's farms or homesteads, and he shows you how to properly and humanely slaughter an animal and break it down and use every part of it. It was amazing.
That's awesome. I think there's two things going on in kind of society right now. Like on the one side, there's people taking charge of this situation and want to learn more about like whether it's how to grow vegetables or whether it's how to butcher an animal and use an animal more efficiently. And there's other people who are just like, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to eat chemical food. It's like, okay, whatever. But I think what you did, there is a fraction of society who are turning to these kind of like original methods and wanting to learn and understand it. Like, why did you go and what did you take away from it?
Well, it was really interesting. So they called me to ask me to cook the other food for the event. So I was more coming as a chef and then just watching the process. But it was really, really, really informative and helpful because a lot of people don't realize that a whole animal avails so much food. There's just like from the bones to the collagen to the fat to the meat. You can utilize it and store it and cure it. So he was showing us how to use everything, how to cure things in a very traditional way. And it was extremely, sort of mind-blowing to see that with this one animal, you could feed yourself for like a number of months.
Yeah.
And the amount of waste that goes into our food these days, like people just, they'll buy a whole chicken and they'll throw out the carcass. And when you can make like 5 different meals from one chicken. So, there's so much misinformation about food that there's just going to be an abundance forever. And that to me feels a little short-sighted because the food scarcity, we saw this during COVID. We were missing certain items.
Right.
So sort of taking agency over your life and saying, I'm going to learn how to do a process, whether, like you said, it's growing vegetables, having chicken so you can have fresh eggs, or, growing pigs and raising them and then slaughtering them and using the whole entire thing.
I feel like we've become so lazy as a society. Like not only is food convenient, but we've been very selective about what we buy. Oh, I only want the chicken breast, or I only want like this part of the animal. It's like, we've gotten away from, we used to eat. I mean, I remember growing up, we always had liver. We had oxtail often. Like my mother was like fairly experimental with food, and she would buy, a lot of offal and cuts that like a lot of people don't seem to eat anymore.
Yeah.
And I think as time's gone by, we've become lazier and lazier with the animals and more disrespectful of the animals. And like I said, only using those kind of choice cuts that we consider to be more appealing to the palate,
or the healthier version,
or the healthier version,
right? Which
like
is
in
not
quotes,
which is
not the
so misinformed, right? People think, oh, chicken breast is healthier, it has low cholesterol, but that's not the case. So I'd rather have a grass-fed steak than a chicken breast.
We talk about nutrient density a lot, right? And some of these things like liver and stuff it's the most nutrient dense food you can consume, and a lot of that good stuff comes from whether it's the liver, whether it's the heart, whether it's the brain, whatever it is. There are so many parts of the animal that we can consume and that are delicious if you prepare them right. But again, I think a lot of it comes down to like preparation. People don't want to prepare anything anymore. They want the meal in 5 minutes. So it's like, what's the easiest cut? What's the easiest method? What's the most convenient way? And I want it like on my plate in front of me, rather than thinking, I'm going to get this cut. I know how nutritious it is. I know it's going to be good for me and my family. I'm going to learn how to get it, prepare it, serve it, all that good stuff. But because it's a process, people are just too lazy.
Or people think it's going to take longer than it does.
Right.
Like
it really doesn't take
People
long.
will like meal prep for 7 days, which drives me crazy because like after 3 days, your food is basically dead. Right. So like, having meal prep for a full week means that you're eating food with no nutrients in it.
Right.
But if you took the time that you took to make all those 7 meals and just broke it down, I mean, you're not a professional chef and you make yourself food all the time.
Yeah.
And it takes you 5 minutes.
I mean, liver takes I pan for it like maybe 3 minutes on each side and it's done.
Right. And it's like, and then you have this like nutritious, nutrients dense, healthy, delicious meal.
Yeah. And liver's cheap, by the way. Like liver's not expensive and it's easy to prepare. It's delicious. And you don't need a lot of it. Like it's very nutritionally dense, very rich. So you only, whereas I might eat like Well, I might eat a lot. So I might eat like a pound of beef, maybe. I'm not going to eat a pound of liver, like, you know, maybe quarter of a pound, because it's just so nutritionally dense.
Absolutely.
And the flavor is so intense that you don't want to have like too much of it.
But don't you think also, I feel like people just get into like patterns and rhythms. So when they're like, well, I know how to grill a chicken breast, so I'm going to do that. And it's easy. I know what it's going to taste like. It's familiar. There's a sense of like comfort when something's familiar. People don't love to step out of their comfort zone to eat something that feels a little scary. And like, I think also there's just this pendulum that's swinging on like Instagram with like the raw meat guys where, I mean, do you, but they're like, oh, only eat raw liver and only eat raw heart. And it's like, well, we could come to a middle place where like you can still cook it and eat it and still retain the nutrients.
As with everything, it's a polarizing world now of like, you're either eating raw testicles,
right,
or you're eating chemically engineered vegan food,
right? And
that's what Instagram is full of, like, rather than there being like, okay, there's a sensible middle ground, like you're saying, where like all of these things can coexist in a sensible way. But of course, that doesn't get like clicks and likes and you know, media, so we get the extremes. But I think there is. I mean, I see it a lot, and maybe just because we're in this world. Yeah. But especially in Idlewild, I think people are much more conscientious about, okay, where is the food coming from? Yeah. You know, who's farming it? What's in it? What chemicals have been used in the you know, development of it, and so forth. So it kind of gives me hope to some degree that there is a growing awareness and a growing kind of love of this kind of thing again. I know a lot of people up here, like, they have their own chickens, and they're thinking about like having little farmsteads and so forth. So I think there is a growing trend towards it, and you know, with the way things are looking, like, I think this is a very good time to raise your awareness, raise your knowledge, educate yourself, and understand how to grow things, how to butcher things, like the course you just did, because food is getting harder and harder to come by, and more expensive to come by.
It's more and more expensive. I don't know if there's going to be as much of a scarcity as there's going to be a cost problem. Right. And people think, well, I'll always be able to go to Costco and buy, you know, my 50 chicken breasts. Maybe. But you're going to pay a premium. Yeah. It's going to be really expensive. We were talking earlier about the expense of feed right now. Like, it's gone up so much. And I've been sending everybody this Instagram video I saw that went viral. And it was a farmer just saying that you guys do not understand. The cost of feed right now is so high. It costs so much to raise an animal. By the time that animal comes to fruition, the cost of that animal is going to be so expensive, you're not going to be able to afford to buy it. And this is happening all across America. Across the board, yeah. I mean, my friend lives in Ramona, and a neighbor of his had 8 steer, and she had to get rid of them because she can't feed them. They're too expensive. And this is where community comes in. We live in a small community. We live in Idlewild. We sort of take care of each other. It's really lovely. However, that's not pervasive. You know, it's not par for the course. And so maybe, you know, I'm trying to educate people at, like, if you see something like that, if you see someone selling their animals, maybe go to them and say, like, how can I be of service? How can I help you? So that you can have this community where we're taking care of each other. You know, you don't want there to be no small farms. Like, the small farms are having the hardest time because they can't, like you said, feed their animals. And then what is it going to be? Just large corporations raising animals and large slaughterhouses? We don't want that, because you saw, like, the couple of years ago, the pig slaughterhouse had to get shut down for some sort of COVID related thing, and then there wasn't any pork. Right. So, you know, I think we have become in this country really reliant on the larger corporations, the government, to sort of take care of us instead of taking... Because that's the way they wanted it. Right. They made it very, very hard for, you know, they make it very hard for a lot of small businesses and a lot of small farms to survive. And they make it easy for consumers, right? Yeah. Like, oh, just buy this thing. It's cheap. Right. We're going to subsidize the corn. We're going to subsidize the wheat. And then these larger farmers, you know, they're subsidized. They're still not making a ton of money, but they're being subsidized. And then the small farms, they have to buy this feed, and it gets higher and higher and higher. And then they're not going to have any animals. And what are we going to do? Be relying on something that is unstable? Yeah. So it's, I think, taking a little bit more power back instead of playing the victim role, which I think a lot of people move into the space of, well, I I can't do anything about this, but you
Right,
can.
but you can.
You know, we live in California. I'm not talking about elsewhere, but we live in California. There are a million farmers here. You can go educate yourself, introduce yourself. They want to know you. They want to have connection.
Yeah.
They want to have community, and they want to serve you. So like finding your local farm and talking to the farmer and seeing what you can do to participate in this communal process.
Right.
So
and
that we
support
can keep
that
them
growth.
going. Yeah.